Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this November 8th day, Tuesday. I know that the college football playoff came out tonight. It looks like that Tennessee and their loss dropped down the fifth. So I guess the rankings really held close there. Didn't drop them down too much. I thought with a two score loss there, but remember, Georgia was number one in the AP poll. I'll get more into college football tomorrow night. As far as I know, I've got everything set up. Around 7:15 Central Time on Thursday. I'll have Mike Wessoff, legendary special teams coach, 32 years. Think about that, 32 years. Mike Wessoff, coach, I'm going to talk about his book that's been out for a few months now called Figure It Out. He'll be on Thursday, as some of you may see. I'll make another announcement leading up to that day. And if something, falls through, I'll obviously give you a heads up there as well. Tonight, going to talk about, I've never been so impressed on two different sides with two different teams on that Sunday night game. I'll go into a little bit of detail between the Titans and the Kansas City Chiefs here in a little bit. Two different deals there. We'll go into this Geno Smith. This Geno Smith story is really a heck of a comeback. Now, I understand we're only 9 games in. We still have a half a season to go. He could fall apart. But I was going to read you some stats about the Seattle Seahawks. I love these surprise stories, Pickles. I love these stories. For example, in college, who saw Tennessee coming out being a number one team, even though they lost last week? Who saw Seattle? And I went back and looked at Geno Smith's timeline from the time he really got off to a bad start, and it's about hanging in there with him. Who was this guy's name? Steve Harvey said, if you're going through hell, keep going. Why do you want to stay in hell? And just pressing through. And it's a really good story. I've got some information on him. But first, there was there's been 2 firings, and we're not even technically, we're right at the midpoint. I don't recall 2 firings being like that, so close. We're not even nowhere near Black Monday, which is after the Monday after week 18. Remember, we got 17 games now, where there's just a slew of NFL coaches that get fired. So we got 2 that's been fired already. And Monday, of course, I didn't get to this story yesterday. So Monday, there was a athletic story about Sean Payton. And this story is basically saying that he will return. He will return to coaching. And he is, and I've mentioned this before, but there was an interview with him and a pretty long write-up there on Sean Payton, former Saints coach. I didn't know that he had been there 15 years. And the Saints used to be called the Aints. They went through that Hurricane Katrina in 2006. Took a chance on a quarterback with a bad shoulder. Remember, the Dolphins wouldn't even take a chance on Drew Brees. Because of his shoulder injury, the Chargers didn't want to properly compensate him. So long story short, Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis end up working out a deal with Drew Brees, and the rest is history. Should they went to more Super Bowls? Yeah, but later on in Brees' career, he wanted more money. He wanted that top end above that 12.6%. But if you look at where they were and how they end up going and finishing, winning the division, he was there 15 years. And you look at that winning percentage there with that Super Bowl, with that bad a team. He guy's only like 58. I think he's going to be 59 this year. but from what I'm reading with this athletic story, he's staying put. He's staying in Manhattan Beach, okay? His daughter is going to get married in Southern California, and he's staying in Manhattan Beach, just kind of hanging out for right now. His son is a senior, but he's also working with the football program, which tells me he's wanting to get into coaching as well. But that's over there in TCU, by the way. TCU is in the football playoff. We don't know how long that's going to last. So he's got a son at TCU. He's staying close to the daughter and his wife. They're staying in Southern California. But with the fact that the Colts have already fired their coach, the Carolina Panthers have already fired their coach, this Sean Payton sweepstakes is real, you know. But I'll say this. His contract will run through 2024. So a team will essentially have to trade to get him. Now, you guys won't believe. Now, Pickles, you believe this. Visited the Manning boys. Pickles says he visited the Manning boys on Monday Night Football. He's doing the Manning thing on Monday night. He seems to be on him. I think Colin Cowherd actually lives in Manhattan Beach too. So he's on his show at least once a week, from my understanding. I seem like I'm always hearing him on his program, dissecting a game, going through a routine, a game day prep and whatnot. So he's like Brady. He's away from the game. He says basically he was burnt out, working, he says, around 100 hours a week. So Jim Jeffcoat says that the head coaches don't work that many hours. I may ask that to Mike Westhoff. Which one's right? Do the head coaches really work that many hours? Or is it really the assistants that work that many hours? And quite frankly, they got another hot one for Westhoff too. But I will save that one for later. Okay, so again, his contract doesn't run out technically until 2020. So technically, they still have his rights, you know. And Loomis is still the general manager there. By the way, this coach here, he's already off to a terrible start, by the way. Their head coach up there, Dennis Allen, lost again last night to the Ravens. Now, this Ravens team is, you know, had a lot of injuries, but with Roquan Smith, you're already starting to see the development there with that defense coming together even more. I mean, he fit right in really quickly. Was no big deal adding him on. I mean, Dennis Allen right now is he was 4-12 in 2012 with the Raiders, 4-12 and 13, and 0-4 and 14, and fired after week 4. He's 3-6 so far with this Saints team. I actually thought they had a chance. You know, I thought they had a chance there. But anyways, going back to Peyton. So what would happen to a guy who's won a Super Bowl, retired for a year, and say he wants to come back next year? Well, here's a little trip down memory lane, all right? We all know about John Gruden with the Raiders. Gruden supposedly, this is according to The Athletic, Al Davis wasn't inclined to pay it, so he orchestrated a deal with the Buccaneers. Gruden wanted a massive contract in 2002, and Al Davis wasn't inclined to pay it, so he orchestrated a deal with the Buccaneers, who paid, check this out, I totally forgot about this, paid the Raiders 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and $8 million. That was back when Al Davis still had his fastball, right? But we know what happened. Hey, if you get the ring, you get the ring. That's my thing. You know, if you get the ring, it's worth it. Obviously, he goes to Tampa, the team he coached up with Bill Callahan. That it's like the Gruden Bowl. They make it. And, of course, Tampa, we know what happened there. Tampa ends up winning. Herm Edwards, not even a Super Bowl winner. Herm Edwards wanted a new contract with the Jets in 2006 before they decided to trade him for a 4th rounder to the Chiefs. Bill Parcells is a famous one. He quit the Patriots in '97, take over the Jets, who had to fork over first, a second round, a third round, and a fourth round pick to the Jets. And the Mike Holmgren, I was just mentioning Mike Holmgren not giving a coach too much power. Mike Holmgren angled for power with the Packers in '99 before leaving to the Seahawks, who surrendered a second-round pick. And, of course, Bill Belichick resigned as head coach for the Jets. The Patriots gave the Jets a first-rounder and a couple late-round swaps. That seems like a bargain, okay? A first-rounder and a couple late-round swaps for Bill bleeping Belichick. So what am I saying? Mickey Loomis, a hardball guy like that with the Saints, he's probably going to ask for a first round, probably multiple first round picks. Now, this is, of course, if something happens, if a very appealing job opens. Also, the Baltimore Colts, here's a famous one. The Baltimore Colts were awarded in 1971, Pickles, a first-round pick when Don Shula negotiated a contract with the Dolphins, who violated the NFL's tampering policy. So apparently, the Colts had the Baltimore Colts were awarded a 1971 first-round pick because of Don Shula. I thought that was fascinating. Okay, so now to look at this, and you say, well, who would he want? Again, I don't think that he's going to work for a crazy owner. He's already implicated in this story. Now, of course, this makes sense. You're 59. You've already got a Super Bowl win. You got a very high winning percentage as a head coach. The guy's 59. He still looks 45. 35 to 40 years old. He still looks very young to me. A lot of energy for Sean Payton. Now, I don't think he's going to go to a crazy owner like a Jim Irsay, what we talked about yesterday on that program, or a Jeff Tepper, who's Jim Irsay light, except he's more successful as a businessman. That's the owner up there with the Carolina Panthers. Other jobs that you all may not be thinking about that could be open. The LA Chargers. I just mentioned his daughter's living there. Justin Herbert is in year 4. Next year, he'll be in year 4. So that means year 4, he's still on that rookie contract. Very favorable. I want to say they're paying him like $8 million. You look at that roster, Derwin James under contract for a while. You look at that running game. Slater, the left tackle's really good. Mike Williams, he signed up for several years there. You still got Khalil Mack for a year or two. Joey Bosa, he's in good shape. So you have a full roster. He's already living there. That's if. Now, the Chargers are in the playoff hunt. If the playoffs started today, they would be like a 7th seed, believe it or not. Remember, that was a big win over Atlanta on the that was a big win over the Falcons on Sunday. All right. So the Chargers would definitely be a contender to get in the Sean Payton sweepstakes if that job were to come open. Plus, they could probably give up a first-round pick, too, to the Saints. Now, again, he's on contract to 2024, so technically he could sit out 2 years, okay? Sit out 2 years in the team he goes to, not pick up nothing, but an opportunity to work with the Justin Herbert. The other one would be the Buffalo Bills. Just mentioned Sean McDermott, defensive-minded head coach. They're not running the ball. Peyton has 1,000 ways to run the ball. Very creative. Sometimes he can overthink the room, but they never had problems running the football up in the Saints. He always elevated his coaching against guys like Bill Belichick. He always seems to elevate his game towards big coaches. Would he want to go up to Buffalo and freeze to death? Well, money may be a little bit of an issue for Josh Allen. He's going to get like $39 million. They can probably adjust that. It's a tempting job, even though it is in Buffalo. That's what they make airplanes for. Going to get paid a lot of money. You know, if he takes that job, he's going to ask for a ton. I wouldn't want to go to Buffalo, but for an opportunity to work with Josh Allen and feel that glory again for 3 to 5 years, possibly Buffalo Bills, Cleveland. What if Jimmy Haslam simply gets irritated with Kevin Stefanski? I know I've been irritated with him. I don't know how much of a hand or the general manager, his hand was in keeping a guy like the quarterback they got now and Jacoby Brissett over not keeping their other backup quarterback from last year. Okay, so look at that offensive line. Look at that running game. Look at that pass rush. You're going to get Deshaun Watson back in week 11 of this year, right? You put Sean Payton coaching that team, you better win. You better win, you know? Myles Garrett, I mean, just loaded roster. Plus, it's really cap friendly for the next few years. Really smart numbers guy that runs it. You've seen they beat up on Cincinnati pretty good. But, you know, a lot of those games were close situations there. Maybe Jimmy Haslam gets a little irritated with Stefanski, wants to upgrade to a Sean McVay. I wouldn't want to live in Cleveland, Ohio with those lake effect snows, but an opportunity to win another Super Bowl, get the glory. Same thing. He's got the quarterback in place, got the roster in place. Really good running game. The running game's already there. You got Nick Chubb there for a few more years. That team is ready now. They are ready now. So that one would be good. Of course, this one, this next one, a lot of people are talking about. Of course, the Dallas Cowboys. There's a connection there between Bill Parcells, Jerry Jones already. The son is going to school at TCU. Dallas is a much more livable town than Buffalo, New York, or Cleveland, Ohio, or L.A., which, you know, if he lived in L.A., you're going to ask for more because they're taking a lot more on cost of living and taxes and whatnot. But my thing about it is, do you really want to work? Do you really want to be micromanaged under a Jerry Jones? And my thing is no, Pickles. Now, I don't think he wants to do that. I think he's friends with Bill Parcells, and Parcells will say, yeah, why do you think I walked away? You know, he wouldn't let me cut certain players. My understanding was he didn't want him to cut Terrell Owens. And Parcells did want him to cut Terrell Owens. Yeah. Now, Pickle says Buffalo win the Super Bowl this year. This is if Buffalo does not win the Super Bowl this year. If Buffalo gets put out early this year because they can't run the football late into the game, there's a chance there that McDermott could get fired and they go after Sean McVay or Sean Payton. Too many Seans out here, right? So, you know, and of course, another wild card would be Russell Wilson opportunity to go work with the Broncos. We've seen that defense. They're coming back from a bye this week, and they're going to go play at Tennessee. We'll see how that game plays out. Nathaniel Hackett, it seems over his head. Denver's a very popular place. John Elway is very much a good salesman when it comes to stuff like this. I'm sure he knows Sean Payton. Would Payton take this? Possibly. Defense is there, quarterbacks there. Payton could put in the kind of offense that would probably be ideal for Russell Wilson because look at Drew Brees. Drew Brees, a short quarterback, quick twitch. They have the same kind of similarities. So Wilson's a little quicker than Drew Brees. Now, Drew Brees can run back in the day, though. When he was 30, 29, he could run pretty good. It's just when he got in his mid to late 30s, which Wilson's not too far away from, they would have a window financially for Wilson, but they would have to give up some picks, maybe a player there. So those are my wild cards for the Sean Payton sweepstakes. I think that he's going to think long and hard about it. He's going to really ask, what does this team got to give up? What's my cap situation looking like? all that would lead back to the Chargers. It would all lead back to the roster. By the way, a really good, I think his name was Tom Presprio. That is the general manager up there in LA. Very good general manager. Very good roster with that Charger team. I like that tight end. I like the fact they've got a running back they throw to a lot. That's perfect for what Sean Payton does. So they would be my personal 2-1 favorite. Because I think this guy would get out of Payton's way. This Sperios guy, this owner, he's very quiet. I don't hear nothing from him like I do a Jeff Tepper or a Jerry Jones or Jim Irsay or Jimmy Haslam. This guy's pretty quiet, low-key, and that's kind of the owner I want to play for. So that Charger team, again, like I said before, would be the favorite. But those other teams, don't be one bit surprised if any of those teams I just mentioned would not fire their coach. Do not be one bit surprised. Include Sean McDermott. Yeah. Pickle says they're on the hunt on both sides of the ball. I totally agree with that. Hackett's a dead man walking. Let's see, Peyton Manning gigs, Sean Payton. Who you going with? Yeah. And I'm surprised people haven't reached out to Peyton to do a quarterback consultant role or quarterback coach, but he probably gets them every year and he turns them down every year. Speaking of Peyton Manning. All right, switching gears here. Now, I like a good feel-good story, guys. Everybody knows me. I like these motivational stories. Not sure if Geno Smith is a man of faith or anything. Geno Smith, by the way, having a great year, 4th in QBR. That team right now is 6-4. Talked about it yesterday, leading the NFC West. Who in the million years would have thought that? Pete Carroll, a guy that I had dead man walking before the season starts. I thought he was the odds-on favorite to get fired. Now he may be like a coach of the year type of guy, right? A candidate up there with obviously Brian DeBall up in New York Giants. But hey, they beat the Giants, right? But this Geno Smith story is pretty interesting. Okay, he's got an interesting. By the way, it's another little tidbit about Smith. 6 games this season with a 100+ passer rating. That leads the NFL. So here's comeback player of the year, Geno Smith. 32-year-old Geno Smith. But Geno Smith, let's do a trip down memory lane. It's a good feel-good story, right? Like I said, the guy, he got a DUI and a speeding ticket, reckless driving ticket back in January. Been ready to write this guy off for a long time. He was originally drafted back in 2013 by the Jets under Rex Ryan, 2nd-round pick. And, of course, Ryan gets fired. Then Todd Bowles. So he's got 2 defensive-minded head coaches. That's not good for the start, especially guys like Rex Ryan, who ran a guy like Mark Sanchez in the ground. Sanchez got worse each year with Rex Ryan. It seems like he started off real high, and then they just went down because of Ryan was the head coach there. Todd Bowles, another defensive guy. He was hired on because he had a lot of success with Bruce Arians back with Arizona. But Smith was on a lot of bad rosters of defensive mind head coaches. During this time period, a few years later, this guy gets sucker punched. There's questions about whether that gets his jaw broken, by the way, puts him out for several weeks over a plane ticket that he gypped a guy out of $600, Pickles, if you remember that story. Ike Kapala, defensive end there. Now, this guy was cut, and Ryan, having a grudge, being with Buffalo Bills, Rex Ryan, he picks the guy up and puts him on his roster and makes him the team defensive captain just before they played the Jets. Now, I thought that was a little bit. But so this guy gets a broken jaw. And like I said, some other teammates said that it wasn't a sucker punch, that Smith was running his mouth, putting his hands in this guy's face, and this guy's a lot bigger, and he broke his jaw. Of course, he got cut for that. But Smith went back. He comes back later on in the season, around week 7. Then he tears his ACL. So in this one season, you get your jaw. You're drafted by 2 defensive-minded head coaches. That's a strike. Then you get wise with a teammate here. You get your jaw broken. You're out to week 7. So you come back week 7. Then you tear your ACL. Go figure. So then he kind of bounces around the league. Like Carlos said the other day, Matt New Yorker, he's played for the Giants. I don't even remember him playing with the Giants. Then he goes to the Chargers. Then he pops up with Seattle. Been a backup for Russell Wilson since 2019. Like I said, Smith's 32. He was arrested in January for DUI and doing 96 in a 60-mile-per-hour zone. But all that being said, Seattle had a really good draft. They took advantage of the draft capital and what they got from Denver to get a guy like Kenneth Walker, get 2 good offensive linemen. The defense, by the way, is playing well. This all goes with Geno Smith's success, right? Yeah, I want to bring some stats here. So the defense even picks up because he's managing the game right. It's helping Seattle out on the other side of the ball. And I want to say, interesting little stat, if I can find it. Of course, it's probably on my other phone here. Either way, the defense is tremendously better. I can't find that. I thought I screenshotted it, but I didn't. But so this guy has 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's 4th in QBR. They're 6-3, leading the West. I thought they were 6-4. They're 6-3. He's getting paid $3.5 million on the cap. You know, I mean, if he lasts and Seattle makes the playoffs and he wins a game or 2, he's in a contract year. Like I said the other day, this is a heck of a story, though. This is about hanging in there, taking your dues, working hard, working through problems, and not giving up in life. But that being said, considering the fact his immaturity in the past, his slow development, the DUI back in this at the end of last season, I may keep him on. I say, listen, man, we'll keep you on for about maybe we'll knock you up to 5 since you had a really good year. Give you incentive up to $15 million. That is touchdowns, yardage, snaps. How far does the team go? That would be your max. That do not do what the Titans did, even though I'm about to compliment the Titans here in a minute. Do not do what the Titans did and give this guy some massive contract like they did with Ryan Tannehill, where they're paying him $35 million because he has a good season, on $35 to $45 million on the back end of that contract. Because it's kind of a similar situation, except Tannehill had a little bit more success in Miami than Geno Smith. But Smith's playing well. You know, this is a story. You know, it is a story here. And, okay, Seattle, check this out. Seattle has allowed the fewest yards per play, second lowest QBR in the NFL during its 4-game winning streak that began in week 6. Rookie cornerback Tariq Woolen, rookie. That's another guy out of the same trade, right? Tariq Woolen has allowed the 4th lowest passer rating as the nearest defender in coverage this season per Next Gen Stats. This is from ESPN. Their defense, yards per play, 1st, sacks 19, tied for 1st. QBR tied 30, tied for 2nd. Takeaways tied for 2nd. That's the last 4 weeks now. But that being said, hey, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. He may get Coach of the Year. So this is the craziest story, other than some of the crazy stuff Jim Irsay's done, and all of the. It's the biggest surprise of the league, man. And I like to talk about stories like this. You know, there's a lot of bad news I can talk about, but just because it's bad news, or just because it's a really good feel good doesn't mean I have to ignore it, because I know a lot of the media, they like to pounce on the bad, pounce on fire this guy, fire that guy. This guy's not making it. Start this guy, bench this guy. It's a good story. It's a good story. And here's the thing. If you got a quarterback that's managing the offense right, I do believe that the defense feeds off that. The defense plays better when the quarterback plays. I don't know why on some teams that is, but it seems to be the case. Josh Allen first took over the Bills his rookie year. The Bills were so bad. They had a guy, a cornerback, is a pretty good guy, well-known guy, retired halftime. This guy retired. He got beat so bad for the Bills, the cornerback. And this guy was like a former Pro Bowler or something. So he retires at halftime. They benched the starting quarterback then. I think it was a guy like Nathan Peterman, right? So the next week, they play Minnesota and start this young rookie named Josh Allen, and they dominate a team. They were like 17 point. It was like 15 to 17 point underdogs. They totally dominated Minnesota in Minnesota. The defense, like, where'd this come from? Where did this come from? 1 week, the defense plays totally better. It was unbelievable. But I think that is with Geno Smith's play. I can't believe I'm saying this, but hey, it is what it is, right? So we'll see how that one goes, man. I don't know how that's going to play out, but it is interesting. I will say that. Moving right along. Okay, so Sunday night comes along. Wasn't going to watch much of this game. I thought that you get Andy Reid off of a bye week, right? Playing against a Tennessee team. It's at Kansas City. The Titans are with the quarterback who can barely complete 3 to 5 passes a game. He can't make his first read, much less his second read. Okay. And you're at home. So everything is going. By the way, before their bye week, you guys see what they did to their last opponent, the San Francisco 49ers at San Francisco. They put 44 points on them with Joey Bosa back. So I thought the Titans were going to get totally obliterated. I thought they would stack the box and stack the box and put Derrick Henry in the box. Maybe he get 10 to 30 yards, and this would be a rout 47-10. Some crazy Buffalo Bills like score that the Titans gave up at the beginning of the season, and that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case, and also. So, I was impressed with both teams. So, and let me tell you, the Titans, that defense, the fact that they were on, check this out. They had time of possession edge on Tennessee 41-26. And that defense had 4 sacks and an interception against Patrick Mahomes. He had to throw the ball 68 times in that game. And that defense that Mike Vrabel put out there, by the way, is that was very much like the early 2000 Patriots teams with Vrabel played on. That looked like the Teddy Bruschi, Laura Malloy, Mike Vrabel, right? That type of defense playing against an early 2003, 2002 Peyton Manning team, where Manning is destroying teams. I don't think the Colts even punted in the Kansas City playoff game where they had Priest Holmes, Tony Gonzalez, really good offensive line, Willie Roaf, okay, very good team, right? They were 13-3. The Colts go to Kansas City. They destroy these guys. It was one of the best individual performances by Peyton Manning, any quarterback. Then the very next week, he looked pedestrian. Kind of like, what's this guy's name, Pickles? The quarterback, Hendon Hooker. He's setting all these records, 52 points in Alabama, and then he's put 13 pedestrian against that Georgia defense. But that's what Tennessee looked like. They looked like they had 15 guys out there. That's what I was telling my dad. We were watching that game. I think it was like the AFC Championship game in 2003. And Peyton Manning was irritated. It was cold up there in Foxborough. And that Patriot team was really good. Ty Law, all those guys. They looked like they had 15, 20 guys out there. You know, they covered so much ground. And that's what the Titans look like. They look like they had 15, 20 guys out there, you know. And so so it's halftime coming up. Tennessee's winning. And I record it was a really good game. I was really tired. So I record the rest of the game. And I wake up at like midnight. So I'm watching this game. And then finally, Tennessee cannot convert. They come back. They get the 2-point conversion. Kansas City does win the game 20-17 in overtime. But the fact that with all those weapons, Juju Smith-Schuster, Valdez-Scantling, had Christian Watson back, this Pacheco guy at running back, all them weapons going against this lowly Tennessee team. And Tennessee played well, you know, considering the fact that they cut Janoris Jenkins because of money at the end of last season. Their second-year player come back from injury, Caleb Farley. He's third string now. He was a first-round draft pick last year. But they've had the emergence of this guy, Christian Fulton. It's turned out to be a standout corner, third-year guy out of LSU. And now they've even got a rookie. Think about this. They had a rookie out there, and he was holding his own. Roger McCreary, I think he was a second-round pick this year out of Auburn. So they had these guys, but they had a main pass rush, and they were dropping 8 guys. They're dropping 4, they're dropping 7, right? But the cornerbacks and safeties were playing excellent. Byard and everybody. But you've got guys like Jeffrey Simmons was all over Mahomes all night. Dino Autry, Bud Dupree, Tier Tart. That's the nose tackle. Not to mention this team ran 100. Well, they were 117 and 2 out of Derrick Henry. Taylor Lewan was out for the season. He went out in the Buffalo game. Okay. Roger Saffeld's with Buffalo because they lost him, best run blocking guard. And Derrick Henry leads the whole NFL in rushing right now, even over Nick Chubb and that great Cleveland offensive line. Tannehill could be back this week. He could be back next week. Mind you, they've still got a 2.5 game lead. Remember, the Colts lost. And then they fired their coach on Monday, right? They got a 2.5 game lead, right? So they got a 2.5 game lead. They may get Tannehill back Sunday. They're probably getting back next Sunday at the worst. Trayvon Burks could be – he's got turf toe. He may be back practicing this week. That's their first-round pick they got in the A.J. Brown trade last year. So you go guys like Robert Woods, Westbrook Akini, Austin Hooper, and that other backup tight end. And I can't believe I'm saying this after what I said after week 2 when they got obliterated by the Buffalo Bills. Tennessee's in a Super Bowl bubble. The Titans are back in the Super Bowl bubble. And you say, well, what about those injuries? It was, so it's nonsense during the regular season when the money you look at the fact that Buffalo's having problems running the ball. That will be an issue in the cold weather. That will be an issue. Plus, I'll give you my Power 5 here in a minute. But Josh Allen, he's got that elbow injury. If Tannehill plays that game, Tennessee wins. They win that game flat out. They are not intimidated by Kansas City whatsoever. All right. You look at that issue there with Buffalo. You look at Kansas City's issue. You look at the North. There's injuries all over the place with Cincinnati, but they're going to play Cincinnati again. I got a feeling they're going to play them a little different coming up in a few weeks. That's a team that knocked them out last year. And Baltimore, healthy defense, they can keep they'll be able to keep Lamar Jackson in check. And everybody else, they were all over Miami last year. I mean, Tua couldn't get the ball off. And they can run the ball, Miami. And you look at the other West, the Chargers, we don't even know if they'll make it. But so they're technically in the Super Bowl bubble. And you say, well, what are you impressed with Patrick Mahomes threw 68 times in that game because they could not run the ball. He was their leading rusher. I want to say they had like 14 yards rushing from non-Patrick Mahomes scrambles. And they still won the game. He throws 68 times. That's insane. And the old Patrick Mahomes, the Patrick Mahomes a year ago, would have forced that ball upfield and threw another interception that would have cost them the game. But the mature, this year's Patrick Mahomes, the methodical Patrick Mahomes, did have one pick, but it never did cost them. That was an MVP-like performance if you look at the way he handled such a really, really good defense that looked like they had 15, 20 guys out there. So I was really stunned by both teams. That was the most impressed both team game I've seen all week long. I mean, yeah. Justin Fields had some good runs there. I know he ran for 170-something yards, but that didn't lead to nothing. They got beat still. They do have $100 million in salary cap room next year, that Bears team. They may be able to make some noise, But, and of course, we saw what Tua's doing. If the $64,000 question, can Tua stay healthy? I don't know. I say he needs to get in that weight room, and he doesn't need to be diving into the opposition. But I was never that impressed. And trust me, I don't drink any Kool-Aid. I'll get to college tomorrow. I felt like Tennessee had a chance to win that game, and they didn't. But I don't drink any Titans Kool-Aid. I thought maybe they should sell off players after week 2. Start trading Henry, trade Kevin Byard, trade Lawan, and restart. But I'll say this. Pickle says Farley was a bust. Okay, Caleb Farley on the Titans, he is third string now, so that very well may be the case. And what I'm figuring out now, the more I get deeper and deeper into this game, I'm big on corners, don't get me wrong. But when you got a really good pass rush, you can cover up young corners. You can cover up a air quote mediocre to bad secondary. Look at the 2020 Tampa Bay Bucks. I talked about their secondary all year long. But they were so good up front. They made up for it. So good against the run like the Titans. Such a good pass rush like the Titans that they made up for it. You see, I talked about those injuries just now with Tennessee. The 2010 Packers team that won the Super Bowl, they were gutted with injuries. Gutted. I mean, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, corner, you name it. Players everywhere. But the players that filled in, they filled their role nicely, and they had time to make up for time with filling those roles for the other words. If those all happen in one game and you plug your new guys in, you're going to get beat. But throughout the season, you get 7-8 starters out. You still have a chance in the NFL. And I think the Titans have a chance. I really think they're going to run off. If you win the division, you get the home game, you can win. Look at the Steelers back in 2004, right? They was the last seed. Same thing with the Giants. What were they like? 8, 9, and 7 or something like that. Went all the way, won the Super Bowl. Those teams weren't even division winners. The 2000 Ravens, they were just the team that won their division. They weren't a 1 or 2 seed. They beat the Titans. They were a 1 seed. So this leads me to my Power 5. It's not that I have a problem with Philadelphia. I just like Mahomes better than Jalen Hurts, even though Hurts is having a good season. I like that performance by Kansas City. That was a gritty performance in a team that played out of their mind on Sunday night. So I got Kansas City as a top team. I think they can beat you in a shootout. They can grind you out. Their defense is better. They're getting healthy again. They've had a slew of injuries. Those guys are coming back. I like Nico Hartman getting involved more. He's starting to become a reliable target. It's not all about Travis Kelce here. I like the 2 receivers. Kadarius Toney had a catch. So they're my number 1 team right now in the NFL. Number 2, of course, I've moved up Philadelphia. They're 8-0. Love their running game. Probably the best offensive line in football, in my opinion. 4 touchdown catches in 2 games for A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, and him. They are really living up. They were bragging a lot during the offseason and running that mouth. But you know something? They're backing it up. They are backing it up. And Hurts does have an outside chance as to get an MVP. They got a really good shot at a 1 seed. Outside shot to go perfect. So, yeah, I got the Eagles as a number 2 team. Buffalo at number 3. Remember, Josh Allen's got an elbow injury, still getting evaluated. He made a big throw in that game after that injury. I think he's going to play through it. That's why I didn't drop him any farther. Still got a great pass rush. They're going to be forced to make some moves, though, and adjust their offense. If they don't, again, don't be surprised if Sean McDermott don't get fired. I talked about that yesterday. Number 4, Baltimore. Baltimore had Mark Andrews and Bateman out. Their leading tight end, one of the best tight ends in the league, probably number 2 or number 3. Mark Andrews, he didn't play last night. And Rashawn Bateman's out. Their first round wide receiver pick. And they still dominated. I felt like they dominated the Saints. And Roquan Smith, he's fitting in like one of those round pegs. I got Baltimore at number 4. Minnesota, man. Number 5, 7-1. Big comeback at Washington. Like that running game with Dalvin Cook. Plus Kirk Cousins, not folding in big games. Not folding in big moments. Like the pass rush of Zadarius Smith. And what are they up? 4.5 games? And plus, they acquired T.J. Hockenson last week. This guy learned the offense in a week. 9 catches, 70 yards. I'm telling you, the fans will resent that general manager and organization for trading a guy like Hockenson inside the division like that. But hey, Detroit did win. So that's my top 5. Honorable mention, teams like Dallas would be honorable mention. The Titans, I could see their defense up front. They would be honorable mention. The 49ers, once they get fully healthy, will come back. I think they still will probably find a way. Still got a good chance to win that. I think it's going to be between Seattle and the 49ers in the West. But we shall see, folks. We shall see. Okay? So we got all that. And do want to do a quick note here. Kudos to Dusty Baker. How about that in the World Series? Now, I told you all about Dusty Baker before. Not a big baseball guy, but I like feel-good stories. Okay? I don't know how old Dusty Baker is. My guess is he's 70s. Gotta be, right? Late 60s, 70s. Baker, I've been following him since he took over, I want to say in 92 with the San Francisco Giants. Anybody remembers this? Pickle said he was overdue. Now, Dusty Baker was that Giants was really close. They come right down to the pennant. The Braves, for whatever reason, I don't know what the MLB was thinking, what they were smoking when they put the Giants in the West with the Braves. But for some weird reason, for a few years there, and the Braves just beat them. Corey says he's 73. The Braves just beat them out, Corey, if you remember that. They just did beat out. And of course, I loved that as a kid. As a Braves fan, I'm out of Nashville. And, you know, he had Barry Bonds. Then this guy was a hardcore manager, managed hard. So let's fast forward about 9 years. He gets all the way to the World Series through my Braves. My friend of mine I grew up with, went to high school with, called me mocking the Skip Carey Braves win. He's like, Braves lose. I said, okay, that karma's going to catch up with you. Go California Angels. Plus the Angels beat the Yankees that I hated at the time. Still don't really care for. Don't hate them as much as I used to hate them. I felt like they were buying up the league at that time. So that Angels team beats the Yankees, and I swear, I think they went all the way deep in the game. They had a World Series won. The Giants did. And their pitching blew it at the end. Dusty Baker comes up short again. You can't make this stuff up. So for whatever reason, Baker gets fired. I guess they felt like that he couldn't get him over the hump. So then he goes to the Cubs. And he's got success again with Mark Pryor. 6 outs to go. Pickles still remembers that like it was yesterday. So then he goes to the Chicago Cubs, another lovable team that you want to see win. And we knew about the Steve Bartman game against, I think this is 2003. You cannot make this stuff up. This guy catches the ball. Moses Alou, I can't remember the guy's name. That game. And the Florida Marlins, between Mark Pryor and Kerry Wood, they look like two aces. And I want to say left these guys in too long. So this Florida Marlin team comes back and they beat what felt like a World Series team with those two pitchers there, with Moses Alou and Mark Pryor, Kerry Wood. You know, Kerry Wood reminded me of a smaller Roger Clemens kind of guy. And Pryor was like a bigger, a poor man's, but bigger and stronger, like Greg Maddux. But he ends up throwing his arm out. So Baker gets fired. They blew it. So Baker gets fired. And so then you go all the way up to last year. He's in the World Series, and the old nemesis Braves puts him out again. So they put him out again. And then this past week, Dusty Baker, Corey says, is 73 years old. And he finally gets his World Series. And you know what he says? I'm not walking away in the sunset. I want to get another one. I love that. Moises Alou. Yeah. 3 Alou brothers. Like, I think, and I always got those Alomars mixed up. You got Roberto Alomar, then you got Sandy Alomar. I always got those guys mixed up. And Pickle says Alou has 3 brothers. So you think about it. You know, those are 2 feel-good stories for you all tonight. Okay? I don't think Geno Smith's a saint, but Geno Smith is an example of a guy who's got his butt kicked. He's been embarrassed. He's been talked about. He's played with bad organization, bad coaching. And at 32, he's finally getting his head above water. Uh, I hope he wins Comeback Player of the Year. It seems like a good story. And then Dusty Baker, guy was just criticizing because he always finds a way to lose. I was comparing him to the manager of the Mets this past year, who used to every time he leaves, that manager of the Mets, every time he would leave, the team would win a World Series. Yeah. So, anyways, stand by, guys. I'll be back in a minute 19. I almost didn't put my commercial up. I always got to do my commercial. Hello, Sports Scope followers. After 5 years of doing this program once a week, balancing a 60-hour work week job, I've decided to do the program 5 days a week, 1 hour a night, taking a significant pay cut. So I've started a Patreon page, which is Patreon, Patreon/SportsScope, spelled the same way at the bottom of the screen you see there. For $5 a month, 17 cents a day, you can help support the program. You ask yourself, why SportsScope? Well, I bring in such big names such as Al Borges, former Auburn offensive coordinator, and I cover the big news in sports that the corporate media will not cover. If you want to contribute more than $5 a month, you can go use the Cash App. The cash tag is SportsScope, again, spelled the same way. Or you can go to the Zelle app, sportscope@gmail.com. SportsScope has about 5,000 followers and growing. If you want to advertise on the program, you can email me. The word is SportsScope, spelled the same way again, @gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the program. Hey, now I'm back live again. I want to thank everybody for watching tonight. Tomorrow, we will be going over a little bit of the college game here. I'll get some other stories that I haven't got a chance to get a hold of and get into tomorrow. That will be Wednesday. And I may go over like who needs the game this week. I may do that Wednesday. Now, Thursday, if all goes right, got his email address, it should be fine. Again, and I'll remind again and again, I have Mike Westhoff. I got quite a few questions that I've been working on for Westhoff. Mike Westhoff's got a master's degree. This guy's kind of like a professor of special teams units. I'll say this. We just talked about coaches getting fired, right? I'll tell you guys this. Don't tell Mike yet, even though he may be watching now. 3 coaches for the Jets were fired. 3. And the guy, who stays? Who stays? Herm Edwards, who was it? Eric Manginius, and Herm Edwards, Rex Ryan, Mike Westhoff. What? So those guys get fired, but Mike Westhoff stays. So that's interesting. He's like a bureaucrat, right? You go through different organs, except he's not one of these political guys. He's just a bleeping good coach. He's a really good coach, Pickles. So I'm going to ask him about that because I've never heard of something like that happening before. I've heard of things like a defensive coordinator not having anything to do with the head coach, and Buddy Ryan and Mike Ditka. They didn't talk at all. Ditka ran the offense. He's a former tight end. Buddy Ryan ran the defense. It was the 85 Bears. I thought that was interesting. But, yeah, so Westhoff, and think about this for a second. Mike used to work under Sean Payton, too. I didn't mention that. He come back in 2017 and worked under Sean Payton. He's got a pretty good Taysom Hill story. I mean, this guy's got great stories. So, anyways, appreciate it, Pickles. Professor of Special Teams, a good idea. Okay, thank you, Pickles. Thank you, Corey. Guys, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll get into it again. SportsScope, 7 p.m. Central Time, of course. Same time, same place, as always.